Welcome to RED35, and today we're going to talk about something relatively special for all the hybrid photographers and vloggers alike, the Zhiyun WeeBill Lab. Zhiyun at the photography show earlier this year, and we were quite impressed with one of the gimbals on display, which is this, the WeeBill Lab. We think it's actually quite special because Tracy has the Crane 2 that she never uses because she said it's quite big and heavy. Yeah, but I think we found the solution. There are a lot of videos out there already review the WeeBill Lab, and I can say that all of them are very positive, and yeah, we're going to add another one. And also something that is quite special that, you know, you guys know that we are Olympus guys, so yeah, we want to try out with the Olympus gear, because all those reviews that you've seen so far, they were either Canon, Sony or Panasonic, so we think we might be the very first one to review this gimbal with Olympus setup. So we're going to see how it goes. And also you might have noticed that I have used this with an iPhone as well, and yeah, that worked out pretty well.
Well, I don't mind to slow down anymore. I don't mind the sound of my shoes on your floor. I don't mind selling out or playing cover songs.
So here is the deep dive. So first of all, I want to talk about the build quality of these things, and like any Zhiyun gimbals that I've seen and touched so far, and including Tracy's Crane 2, I think they are quite exceptional. The whole thing feels very solid, and of course, you know, there are plastic parts here, which is the main bit here is actually plastic, but most of the components, you know, and the main joint and motor covers, they are all metal, and which is actually feels very solid at least I know it can probably withstand some sort of banging. I wouldn't drop this thing though, however, but I guess, you know, you wouldn't want to drop any gimbals because I think they're still quite delicate, and if you break the motor or break the joint somewhere or bend it somehow, you know, it's not going to be very good indeed. But overall, I think it's very impressive. All the dials and buttons feels very solid, very clicky, and I have absolutely no complaint about the whole construction of it. Next is handling, and I think this is where the WeeBill Lab really shines. First of all, I have to say it's very versatile for one thing. You know, like most of the gimbal, traditional gimbal that you see, including Crane 2 and most of the other gimbals out there, including mobile gimbals, are, I mean, they actually look like this, basically just a little stick with a little kind of bracket at the top. This is what most gimbal looks like. But the difference between the WeeBill Lab is that you can detach the bottom part, which also double as a mini tripod as well, which is actually very handy when you want to just sit it down and do some time lapses and things like that. You can actually detach it and reattach it from the top to do what they call the under sling mode. So you can kind of like hold it at a very low angle and do this running shot, which is actually pretty impressive. And traditionally you will have to hold it like a stick, almost like a fishing rod, and have to do that and run. It's just not very natural, especially if you want to do that kind of end motion where you're trying to kind of pan it back up, and doing this and bring it up is actually less natural compared to doing it just like this motion, because your arm is actually very natural when you do this swinging motion. So I think it's actually pretty good in that sense, and also because of this angle, it allows you to go much lower than usual as well, so you can almost touch the ground, and then you can get some really dramatic shots there. So I do like that sense. And in terms of balance, I think it's really good, and simply because it's actually relatively lightweight compared to some of the bigger gimbals out there. But you have to bear that in mind that the gimbal is also less powerful. Yeah, it's slightly smaller, so everything has to be a little bit smaller, so including the motors. So you cannot have a bigger setup with this. So this is made for most of the medium-sized mirrorless cameras. It works fine with like this one here, the E1 Mark II, or Sony A7, even the full-frame Canon EOS R with a relatively small lens. So you cannot mount a huge lens on these things, or in fact, if you want to use one DC, like bigger DSLR, this thing would definitely not work. And also another thing is that because of the less strong motor, you have to make sure that the whole thing is perfectly balanced before you even switch on the power button. I do notice that if you use the gimbal slightly off balance, and there is a chance the motor will actually give up halfway through. So if you have it completely unbalanced and you're just trying to switch it on, it will turn on, everything seems to be fine, but as soon as you start shooting at a certain angle, and sometimes the motor will just give up and basically cut off the power itself and to prevent any damages to the motor. So you just have to make sure that everything is perfectly balanced and before you start shooting, basically. We're going to go through some of the main features of this gimbal, of course. First of all is the pan follow mode, and as the name suggests, you can see that basically what it does is it follows wherever you point the camera to, but you can see that a little bit delay there, and only because the gimbal is trying to stabilize itself and also give you the cinematic and buttery smooth transition. Yeah, by holding onto the go button here, it does actually make it go a little bit faster. So if you hold it down, you do that, you can see how much faster it follows now. It's still a little bit delay, you cannot avoid it, it's just the way it works. You can also adjust the sensitivity in the motor itself, so just to make it slightly more powerful. And but the thing is, this go button, almost like a turbo button, and on the gimbal you have to hold it down. If you want to lock it, so make it like almost like permanent feature, you have to control it via the app on the phone itself. So once the phone is paired and connected to the gimbal, you can enable all those features and make it more permanent. So like basically if you want to switch it off, you have to tap the button again instead of holding down onto the physical button itself. Second mode is the lock mode. So there is a little switch here, you can basically just slide down. Very intuitive, there's no faffing about. So it's very quick making into lock mode. What does that mean is it actually locks the horizontal axis, so now it makes it look like a slider. So it's actually pretty good there. So like no matter what you turn, you can see that no matter what you turn, the camera will lock into one position, so you can adjust it by basically adjusting the angle by twisting or turning the four-way button at the back, so you can actually move it left and right, up and down if you wish. And but this basically would hold that position while you're moving the gimbal, so you can actually do a really nice and smooth slider shot or slider like shot. Pretty useful, I think. Now here comes the special mode. It's called the rocket mode. No, I'm just joking, it's called the vortex mode. So what that means is you press the POV button twice, is to turn this into a rocket position for you to do this very funky spinning shot. Because now in this mode you can actually hold it horizontal or whatever position you want, you can just do this cool spinning shot there. Absolutely awesome. And you can actually make it quite cool though. And but I have to say that in this mode you do have to make sure that your gimbal is completely balanced, because I have a couple of times when the camera was slightly off balance, when I turned it into vortex mode, the motor would basically tell me it's a little bit overloaded and completely cut off in power. So you just have to make sure that you have that balance completely. I have to keep saying it just because it's very critical in the operation side of it. Last but not least is the POV mode, or point of view, or personal view, I don't know, but POV, okay? So that basically would mean that if you press it, enable the POV mode, it now would follow exactly where your head is going. Well, not quite, but then if you go to point it down, it goes down, point it up, it goes up, left and right. So I don't know the usefulness of this, but then it does help when you're trying to do this kind of cool turning thing. Not quite the vortex mode, but it gives you a little bit more control when you do this sort of twisting motion. And but apart from that, I don't see the usefulness on it. But I guess for that, It's quite useful. So there you go. So these are all the different modes there, apart from one more. Here comes to those who love themselves. This thing does have a trigger button. It's not to shoot people, it's to shoot yourself. Press it 3 times, it turns into a selfie mode. Pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah, I do like this mode because I vlog a lot, so this is actually quite good. So now you got a very, very stable platform for you to see your photos and check yourself how it looks like and things like that. And also, if you want to reset everything that you just set, including all the other modes before, apart from the lock mode, press it twice and it will just go back to the normal mode. So, but because in selfie mode at the moment, you have to press it 3 times again before you kind of reset it. But let's say if you're changing your angle and things like that, like if you're now having pointed upward or downward, press it twice, we just reset everything.
If something should come between us, I promise I will stay. Even when we're treading water and the colors seem to fade.
Another really clever features of the WeeBill Lab is the lock button of all the axes. So it's actually very, very cool, not only just for transit. You know, I don't know if you have ever used a gimbal before, you know that thing on the top always swinging around when you take it out and about. So it can be quite dangerous to all the pedestrians, so it can, you know, hit them in the face accidentally, and also during balancing it could be an issue because, you know, you'll be really forever trying to balance it because the whole thing just moves around too much. I can demonstrate how useful this thing is, but basically what they did is they introduced 3 locks individually to each of the axes. So you can see these locks here, there's one here, one on the back, and also one on the side. So each of these will lock a axis, which is actually pretty cool here. For balancing, this is a godsend. It will make the whole setup so much quicker. You know, before I've been trying to do the crane 2, for instance, of Tracy's thing, it takes almost forever. You almost need 2 pairs of hands to trying to get it set up. Just a little bit fiddly, I would say. You know, it's not impossible because most gimbals out there actually you have to do that sort of setup initially, but on this it's very, very quick, and I'm going to show you just how good this is now. So once I lock these buttons, so this one locks the bottom axis, so now this one would lock the axis, so let's see, it doesn't move now, and now I lock the end axis. So now you can see this thing does not move at all. So you might think that this is doesn't, you know, do much, but then apart from holding everything in position. But when you do set up your camera, this is where it goes very, very quickly. So now you can lock individual axes and trying to check the balance of the front, like the front or back motions. And once it's done, you simply lock it, and then you can check this axis. And once that is done, you can check this as well. So the whole thing, it can be done in about 30 seconds or so. You can get a perfect balance, which is almost impossible with all the other older gimbals. And then one last thing I wanted to highlight is that this little tripod mount plate thingy, which is actually pretty cool. So you can now actually unattach this very quickly. So like during transit, you can actually have everything in position. So you want to just bang onto the gimbal, just run and gun very quickly with everything set up. You don't have to reset again, just by putting that on, and that's it. There you go. Now you have a gimbal ready for operation within seconds. How clever is that?
I'm walking, but all these thoughts are running. Yell and catch me if you can, and I'm wondering if I should chase behind a stop.
Through this entire video, you might actually notice one thing that I haven't talked about yet. Is this wheel, this magic knob. Well, it does a special thing, but you cannot do it without this. The little servo motor. Well, I'll tell you what this is actually. You can actually get this separately or get it together with what they call the creator package, and it's a pretty cool thing. This little servo motor actually controls several things. Well, it does one thing, it just turns basically. When you turn the wheel, once this is connected, it turns the motor. But because of this, you can attach to the next to the lens itself and control two things, either a zoom or focus. So that means you can do pull focus or this dolly effect that you like so much, depending on your camera setup actually. So if you have CAF on, if you attach this motor next to your zoom ring, and then you can have this really cool dolly effect. Or if you just simply want to do focus pull, you can just simply move this motor next to the menu focusing ring, so it works perfectly and it's very, very smoothly as well. And this wheel, you can also adjust the sensitivity, like the speed of turning as well, so you can actually turn it quick or turn it slow depending on how finite you want your adjustment is. Here's the confession though, there are two things I haven't tried with the WeeBill Lab. First of all, this motor that I talked about, I did try it, but it didn't quite work for one reason, because at this moment in time, with all the Olympus cameras, because EM1 Mark II, apart from the EM1X, which is a larger camera, but it's not compatible with this unit, the EM1 Mark II, while it works as a gimbal mode, if you want to try to mount this on, you will see that there is not much space for you to mount the focusing loop, the gear loop, supposed to kind of attach to the motor, so it allows this thing to control the zoom or the focusing itself. It's just not enough space for it. You almost have to push the camera all the way out to the front to allow you to mount that ringy thingy on, and but by doing so you will unbalance the whole thing, because it will be so front heavy. No matter what you do, it always tip forward, and that's when the motor always fails and cannot compensate. Remember what I said about perfect balance, so that means it just would not work. I did try my best to do it. It would kind of manage for about a few seconds, and that would be. But I've seen it in action. I've seen it in action with other cameras, and this is another thing I will talk about. It works perfectly and brilliantly. So I think it's a very cool feature. So I would like to see maybe in the future there will be some improvement in terms of the mounting position. So I will be able to mount this on eventually, or simply I will have to invent a plate just to lift the camera up a little bit more. So yeah, that hopefully that would work. The second thing is the screen mode. So these things have another feature, which means that it allows you to connect to your camera's viewfinder through the control unit, so you can then connect your smartphone via Bluetooth to the unit to see what the camera is seeing. So that, unfortunately, at the moment is not compatible with Olympus camera. For the full list of camera compatibility, I'm going to put the link down in the description, so you can check out Zhiyun's website. You can see the whole list of them, which will allow you to have that feature. But at this moment in time, I cannot actually try and test it out, and hopefully one day, please enable that feature for Olympus, and that will mean I will be able to take advantage of that particular feature itself. So apart from that, as a gimbal, this thing really does work, and I think it's definitely cool.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see.
I am totally in love with this thing, and it's by far the best gimbal I've used so far, the most versatile. If you are a hybrid photographer, you shoot video and stills at the same time, and vlogging if you are a YouTuber, and this thing is just so cool and just really brilliant. The thing is, once you detach these things into two pieces, this obviously is so tiny and small, you can shove it anywhere in your coat pocket, anything like that. But just looking at the size of the gimbal itself, the main unit, this thing is smaller than your DJI Mobile and most of the mobile gimbals out there. This is tiny, and because it's got like relatively strong motor for your mirrorless system, and this means that you can actually use it for any sort of system apart from the biggest camera you can find on the market. So it works for my day-to-day camera like the EM5 Mark II, and also my iPhone XS Max with all kinds of bloody lenses mounted on it, so I don't need to use counterweight or anything like that. It's just awesome. So this thing has been in my bag for the last 2 weeks, every single day since I received this unit, and it's really awesome. I have nothing against it, and I just do hope that those features that I mentioned about that currently not compatible with the Olympus system will be resolved in the future. Apart from that, this is brilliant. So there you go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel, this is your first time, please consider subscribing by clicking that button and turn on the notifications so you know when our new video comes out. So until next time, I'm gonna say 再见 and bye bye. Choo! Yeah, we're gonna look at this, the roost. the Zhiyun WeeBill Lab. Okay, you know, the kind of you know, why no called the vortex mode. So what that means is it turns this thing into, oh shit, press the wrong button. Good. All right. And so that limits my useful limit the usefulness of, and you can then control. I'm talking rubbish.